Welcome back. Good morning. It's Miss Gainey, and we are going to continue reading part 3 from The Illustrated Man, and the short story is going to be TheVeldt. So this is part 3 of TheVeldt. If you're following along, we're on page 13. The last thing we heard was George say, Lydia says, "Oh my gosh, the lions, they can't come get us, right?" And George is like, "Of course not." That was the last thing George said. At dinner, they ate alone, for Wendy and Peter were at a special plastic carnival across town and had televised home to say they'd be late. So go ahead eating. So George Headley, bemused, sat watching the dining room table produce warm dishes of food from its mechanical interior. "We forgot the ketchup," he said. "Sorry," said a small voice within the table, and ketchup appeared. As for the nursery, thought George Hadley, it won't hurt for the children to be locked out for a while. Too much of anything isn't good for anyone. And it was clearly indicated that the children had been spending a little too much time on Africa. I mean, that sun. He could feel it on his neck, still like a hot paw, and the lions, and the smell of blood. Remarkable how the nursery caught the telepathic imaginations of the children's minds and created life to fill their every desire. The children thought lions, and there were lions. The children thought zebras, and there were zebras. Sun, sun. Giraffes, giraffes. Death, and death. That last. He chewed tastelessly on the meat that the table had cut for them. Death thoughts. They were awfully young, Wendy and Peter, for death thoughts. Or, no, you were never too young, really. Long before you knew what death was, you were wishing it on someone else. When you were 2 years old, you were shooting people with cat pistols. So what he's referring to is the children's imaginations created this veldt with these lions and the suns and the giraffes. And so that means that they also, these children, created this scenario of death in which the lions were eating some dead carcass. And George is thinking, why would my children think about death? But then he's like, well, then again, when they're just 2 years old, they're playing pretend with guns, so. But this, the long, hot African veldt, the awful death in the jaws of a lion, and repeated again and again. "Where are you going?" He didn't answer Lydia. Preoccupied, he let the lights glow softly on ahead of him, extinguish behind him as he padded to the nursery door. He listened against it. Far away, a lion roared. He unlocked the door and opened it. Just before he stepped inside, he heard a faraway scream, and then another roar from the lions, which subsided quickly. He stepped into Africa. How many times in the last year had he opened the door and found Wonderland? Alice, the Mock Turtle, or Aladdin and his magical lamp, or Jack the Pumpkinhead of Oz, or Dr. Dolittle, or the cow jumping over a very real appearing moon. All the delightful contraptions of a make-believe world. How often had he seen Pegasus flying in the sky ceiling, or seen fountains of red fireworks, or heard angel voices singing. But now, this yellow hot Africa, this bake oven with murder in the heat. Perhaps Lydia was right. Perhaps they needed a little vacation from the fantasy which was growing a bit too real for 10-year-old children. It was all right to exercise one's mind with gymnastic fantasies, but when the lively child mind settled on one pattern, it seemed that at a distance for the past month, he had heard lions roaring and smelled their strong odor seeping as far away as his study door, but being busy, he paid no attention to it. George Hadley stood on the African grassland alone. The lions looked up at them from their feeding, watching him. The only flaw to the illusion was the open door through which he could see his wife, far down the dark hall like a framed picture, eating her dinner abstractedly. "Go away," he said to the lions. They did not go. He knew the principle of the room exactly. You sent out your thoughts. Whatever you thought would appear. "Let's have Aladdin and his lamp," he snapped. The Veldt land remained, and the lions remained. "Come on, room, I demand Aladdin," he said. Nothing happened. The lions mumbled in their baked pelts. "Aladdin!" He went back to dinner. "The full room's out of order," he said. "It won't respond." Or what? "Or it can't respond," said Lydia, "because the children have thought about Africa and lions and killing so many days that the room is in a rut." Could be. Or Peter set it to remain that way. Set it? He may have gotten into the machinery and fixed something. Peter doesn't know machinery. He's a wise one for 10. That IQ of his, nevertheless. "Hello, Mom. Hello, Dad." The Hadleys turned. Wendy and Peter were coming in the front door, cheeks like peppermint candy, eyes like bright blue agate marbles, a smell of ozone on their jumpers from their trip in the helicopter. "You're just in time for supper," said both parents. "We're full of strawberry ice cream and hot dogs," said the children, holding hands, "but we'll sit and watch." "Yes, come tell us about the nursery," said George Hadley. The brother and sister blinked at him and then at each other. "Nursery?" "All about Africa and everything," said the father with false joviality. "I don't understand," said Peter. "Your mother and I were just traveling through Africa with rod and reel, Tom Swift and his electric violin," said George Hadley. "There's no Africa in the nursery," said Peter simply. "Oh, come on now, Peter, we know better." "I don't remember any Africa," said Peter to Wendy. "Do you?" "No." "Run, see, and come tell." She obeyed. "Wendy, come back here," said George Hadley, but she was gone. The house lights followed her like a flock of fireflies. Too late. He realized he'd forgotten to lock the nursery door with his last inspection. "Wendy will look and come tell us," said Peter. "She doesn't have to tell me, I've seen it." "I'm sure you're mistaken, Father." "I'm not, Peter. Come along now." But Wendy was back. "It's not Africa," she said breathlessly. "We'll see about this," said George Hadley, and they all walked down the hall together and opened the nursery door. That was part 3. Stay tuned for part 4.